Not that you weren't spoiled for choice already, but there's a new way to spend 4 crore rupees on your next car. It's called the DBX, it's Aston Martin's first ever SUV, and it's here to lure you away from the Uruses of the world. The promise is of a true blue Aston that's part thriller and part gentleman's express, with seating for 5 and all the ground clearance you'd need. Your DBX experience starts with the way it sounds. Like all modern Astons, the DBX doesn't come to life as much as it erupts to it. There's always this deep bubble in the background, and when you press harder on the throttle, it all just gets louder and richer. And shifting to Sport Plus mode dials up the entertainment value, adding in pops and crackles. At times, it almost sounds like Diwali on the move. The source of the noise is Mercedes-AMG's sensational 4-litre twin-turbo V8 that you'd find under the hood of a whole host of AMG models. On the DBX, the engine makes 550 horsepower and 700 Newton meters. Now, the power and torque figures, the 4.5 second 0 to 100 kph time and a Vmax of 290 kph might not be best in class as super SUVs go, but don't get lost in the numbers, because out on the road, the DBX is one hell of an entertainer. AMG's bi-turbo engine is an absolute powerhouse and has been beautifully adapted for the DBX. It's got the punchy mid-range you'd want, yet in its responsiveness, it almost feels like a naturally aspirated unit. The Merc-sourced 9-speed gearbox is on the ball for the most part, but tends to play catch-up to tugs at the paddles under hard driving. There's a lot else to keep you hooked. One of the highlights of the DBX has got to be its steering. Now, sports SUVs, yes, they can go fast, but can they really be as exciting as a sports car? The DBX sure as hell comes close. The steering is very linear, you point it in and the DBX will shoot in the direction you want it to. It doesn't feel mushy, and honestly, this feels like a car worthy of the Aston Martin badge. The electronically controlled active center transfer case can send up to 100% of power to the rear wheels. A rear electronic limited slip differential decides what to do with that power, and there's torque vectoring by braking too. The rear bias of the power is evident. You can be playful with throttle inputs, and if you're particularly brave and on an empty stretch of road, most importantly, I'm sure you can get the tail out as well. Standard fit active anti-roll bars counter floppy weight transfer so effectively that you'll often exit a corner convinced you could have gone faster still. And unlike many other SUVs, you also feel at one with the DBX. The driving position is really spot on. The pedals, the steering, they really give you a good deal of connection with the car. The seats, they hold you with the embrace of an old friend. And what's also nice is that you're sat at a very comfortable driving position. It's not low like a sports car, and it's not toweringly high like one of those big bulky SUVs. So you get a good deal of connect, and you also have all the ground clearance you'd really need. Speaking of ground clearance, the off-road specific terrain modes give you as much as 245mm of clearance. The DBX also does a really good job of Indian roads. Now there is a bit of firmness, of course. This one rides on 22-inch rims. You also have the option of 23-inch rims. But the point is, you don't have to have your chiropractor on speed dial in something as focused as a DBX, which is a really good thing. Toggle the drive mode selector to GT and the DBX changes character to become an easygoing machine. The exhaust lowers in volume, the suspension softens, and the electric anti-roll bars ease up for more give. I didn't put the Aston's dedicated off-road modes to the test, but I doubt the DBX's well-heeled owners would either. Did I mention the DBX looks spectacular while doing all that it does? The design is classic Aston, beautifully reimagined for an SUV shape. With its traditional DB grille upsized to billboard dimensions here, the long bonnet and tight-fitting roof, the DBX has that strong family look. Even the Vantage-like ducktail boot-lid spoiler will ensure you can't mistake the DBX for anything but an Aston, even from the back. My highlight is the rear LED light strip that runs from shoulder to spoiler to shoulder. Inside, you'll feel like you've been transported to a leather boutique. The Aston Martin DBX's cabin doesn't look quite as cutting edge as some of its rivals. Yes, it's got its digital dials and it's also got a 10.25-inch screen. Now, this is not a touchscreen and it's actually based on the last generation Mercedes unit that's controlled by a rotary controller over here. What this cabin really does wow you for is the sheer level of quality. It feels like an exquisite place to be. You can tell that someone has spent and labored over hours to get the stitching of the leather right. The leather is really high grade. There's beautiful embroidery and pattern work on the top of the dash and on the seats, and just the sheer level of detailing. The sun visors are finished in leather. There's Alcantara for the panoramic sunroof cover, and even the grab handle looks like it's come from some luxury handbag. Even the speaker covers on the doors are finished in high-grade hide. In terms of features, as standard, the DBX gets bi-LED headlamps, air suspension, a 360-degree camera, 64-color ambient lighting, an 800-watt sound system, 3-zone climate control, and powered front seats. You can add more to the car, and might we suggest you tick that option for front and rear seat ventilation. Lane keep assist and adaptive cruise control are other optional features of interest. The DBX caters to rear seat occupants well too. The Rapide was a large Aston Martin with back doors but very poor rear seat space. The DBX is a large Aston Martin with rear doors and a good amount of rear seat space. Now, I'm just under 6 feet tall. The front seat is set to my driving position, and as you can tell, I can really stretch out and sit. What only amplifies the feeling of space inside is this large glass roof. It makes the cabin feel really airy. What the back seat isn't is a place for three. There's a high transmission tunnel, the center console extends far back, so a third passenger will feel like an unwanted guest, but as a seat for two, the DBX's rear works really well. The DBX's powered tailgate opens to a 632-litre luggage area. It's well-shaped and usable, and you guessed it, features a leather-lined parcel tray. It's reassuring that a space saver positioned under the boot floor has been included as well. So, is the DBX the super SUV for you? Let's get one thing out of the way first. The DBX will always be seen in light of the Lamborghini Urus, the current darling of India's super SUV buying elite. The Urus is more extreme, more powerful and more flamboyant, and in base spec could cost you less, though final prices even out when you start ticking the options to bring the Lambo up to the DBX's spec. Opting for the 3.8 crore rupee DBX might seem like going against the tide, but the fact is that this is a hugely charismatic SUV in its own right. The DBX is a subtler take on the super SUV formula and draws you in with its glamorous design and handcrafted cabin, and eventually wins you over with a truly engaging driving experience. Owners will unlikely use their DBX as a daily driver, but imagine how gratifying it is to know there's an all-weather, all-purpose Aston Martin waiting for you to break away in.